Good morning, paddlers. This is Justin with Supboard Guide, and we are here in beautiful southern Utah where everything is just beautiful green, beautiful orange, and kind of fitting for today because we're going to be reviewing the Blackfin Model X and XL, and as you can see, these are beautiful boards. So let's dive into the review, and we're going to take you through the differences between the X, the XL, and how they performed in our testing. Okay, so let's jump into the features on the Model X and the Model XL and the dimensions, and you'll start to see some of the differences between the two boards. So the Model X is 10 foot 6 inches long, it is 35 inches wide, and it is 6 inches thick with a 450 pound weight capacity. The Model XL, on the other hand, is 11 foot 6 inches long, so 1 foot longer, but it's 1 inch narrower, so it's only 34 inches wide, also 6 inches thick, with a little bit higher weight capacity, 485 pounds. Now, quick note on the weight capacities, there is no industry standard for what the weight capacity is, but I can tell you we have tested this weight capacity, and it can hold that amount of weight. Both of the boards can. You will get slower, but you're not gonna be sinking or anything like that. So again, no industry standard, but we think they actually did give you a good approximation of what the actual carrying capacity of the board is. So with that being said, going into the features of the board, again, the X and the XL are all essentially the same. When you start up at the nose of the board, first you'll see the carry handle. The Blackfins have a front carry handle, a middle carry handle, and a rear carry handle. That makes it very easy for launching the board, for getting out of the water, carrying it to and fro if you have two kids that want to carry the board. Next, you see the bungee cords. What's really cool what they did this year with them is they actually made them removable. So you can go in and unclick them, take them out if you don't want them there, adjust them a little bit, put them back. So really like the fact that they are removable bungees. Next, you see these handles. You both have them up at the front and at the rear. These are safety handles. So if you're bringing kids and they're a little bit nervous, instead of like grabbing super tight on the bungees, they can just hold onto those handles. And it does actually make it a lot easier. They are removable if you don't want them there. I never remove them just because I think they look good and they're very functional. The only thing that I would say the Blackfin could do is you could take this, and sometimes if my kid's like sitting right here, they want to hold it back here. So maybe if they could move that back a little bit, it would improve that just a little bit. That'd be my one recommendation for a future board. Moving on down, you have the Blackfin deck pad. Now, you'll notice this year, the deck pad runs from the very front of the board, not all the way to the nose, so it's not a full-length deck pad, but right about here, right behind that bungee, all the way to the tail, so they extended it all the way. And I am a big fan of that. I like to move around on the board a lot, and before, when the deck pad was cut off right about here, I would kind of slip if I was doing like a step back turn or something like that. So I've always been a big fan of the Blackfin deck pad. I love the little Blackfin logo stamped in. I love the grooves because it helps the water kind of shed off it. And I personally like the feel. Deck pad is very personal, but most people that I put on the Blackfins really are big fans of the deck pad. Moving back, you'll see you have the kayak seat D-ring attachments. There are 4. That's a little bit different. Last year there were 6. I've seen a lot of talk in Facebook groups, people going, how do I attach the kayak? How do I do this? How do I do that? It's actually pretty easy. We'll show some B-roll with it being attached, and it's totally fine. On the XL, that's the one where you can attach 2 kayak seats. I would not recommend that on the X. You could probably try it, but you're gonna get a little cramped, whereas the XL, you have that extra foot, can add the 2 different kayaks. iRocker also has a new kayak seat that's going to be available soon that I think is gonna be really cool and an upgrade from their old one. So now moving back, you have 2 Scotty mounts. So anybody who likes to fish, you can use all the really cool Scotty mount accessories. And then you also have the sand spear mounts here. I mean, iRockers in Florida, a lot of shallow fishing waters, and so you can take that sand spear, kind of just jab it down and kind of stay in place instead of using a SUP anchor. So really cool features and accessories there. If you like to fish, we kind of go back and forth on this, where really cool to have the features, right? But if you're never going to fish, I would love to see if iRocker could somehow move these Scotty mounts out to the edge of the board somehow to give you a little more room for like yoga, or if you are paddling with like 2 or 3 kids, sometimes I end up standing on these. But at the same time, I kind of go back, because when I'm paddling by myself, they're never in my way. So I love the functionality, and it kind of just depends on you with what you're going to do. But I mean, as you can see, it's a loaded board in terms of features, in terms of all the accessories that you can put on it. I mean, I even forgot to mention right here, you've got two additional action mounts, and you have 2 action mounts up front. So 4 total action mounts. That's for, like, you know, GoPro, cup holder, phone holder, all of those kind of accessories. And really, you know, you can kind of see we've got a board loaded up over here. You can load up the Blackfins. That's one of the reasons that makes them so versatile, and why we recommend them so highly to so many different people. All right, now we're gonna dive into the inside of the Blackfin X and XL, into the construction. So iRocker stuck with what they've used in the past, which is what they call a triple layer composite PVC. So what does that mean, right? On the inside, you have that base layer of drop stitch, and the base layer is a knitted base layer with V-shaped drop stitch. That's those nylon threads that come in the V-shaped pattern. Now, iRocker, for their ultras, they've moved to woven and cross-threaded drop stitch, which we have actually found to be a little more rigid. And so we were really surprised when we bend tested the Blackfins, where they bent just, you know, 0.75 inches on the XL and 0.8125 on the X. So that was a good, probably 25 to 30% increase from last year's models, even though they kept that V-shaped drop stitch and the knitted base layer. So how did they do that? The biggest difference that Blackfin did this year is on the side rails, right? So on the top and the bottom, they have their 2 layers of PVC. Then when they come to the side rails, you've got all the different layers, and they overlay that with the carbon fiber rail for increased rigidity. It's always been a rigid board. But one thing they did this year is they actually brought that top and the bottom layers and brought it closer around those edges. So instead of having a seam that was about this big that you have to put the side rails over, they brought it closer. That, again, our bend test kind of backed this up, is the biggest difference that has helped improve the rigidity this year. You can feel that rigidity on the water, and more importantly, it's actually going to improve the durability of the board with the seams. So they've increased the warranty to 3 years on the seams and 2 years for board defects, and just in general have created a really good, solid feeling board on the water. Okay, so now we're going to dive into the performance of the Blackfin X and the XL, and we're going to start with stability like we always do. If you're not standing, you're on a stand-up paddleboarding, right? And that's one of the reasons why we like the X so much, is the X and the XL are both extremely stable boards. You know, if you look at the outline, they're very wide. The X, that 35 inches, the XL is 34. You know, you have a lot of volume throughout. They do point a little bit in the nose and in the tail, and so it gives it like a nice sporty feel to it, but I don't find that takes away from the stability of the boards really at all. You know, as you rock side to side, there's really good both first level and second level stability on both the X and the XL. And really, if you're paddling solo, you're not going to really be able to tell the difference in stability between the X and the XL. Where the difference is, right, is when you want to load the board up with coolers, with a second paddler, just that extra space, the extra volume, and that extra weight capacity of the XL does make it a little better. But as you can see, and we've got 2 adults here, it's pretty stable. It's really totally fine. Now, I wouldn't recommend, you know, Laura's not going to stand up and paddle together with me, but if you do want to have 2 individuals on, one sitting, one paddling, the XL is still going to be very stable and still a lot of fun. All right, so from a maneuverability standpoint, the X is going to be your more maneuverable board between the X and the XL. It's only 10 foot 6 inches long, and that does just make it a lot easier to spin around, whether you're doing like a reverse sweep or if you're doing a step back turn. But in general, you know, these are big boards. They're not meant to be the most highly maneuverable boards there are, but I've actually been like surprised at the sporty feel and how maneuverable they are. You know, I'm able to do, when I'm using like a back sweep stroke, turn in about four and a half strokes, turns me 360 degrees on the X, an extra half a stroke on the XL. And then when I'm, you know, doing that step back turn, which as you advance in paddleboarding is something that's just kind of fun to do. And that's really how you want to turn on a dime. The extra width that you get on the X and the XL make that step back turn pretty easy to do as a beginner. You might want to take off those rear bungees if you're going to do that. And I'd also actually like to see Blackfin or iRocker put on a rear kick pad to give you like a good solid place to plant your foot as you step back and do that step back turn. But I mean, given that you have the full length deck pad, you don't need it to do that. And so just in general, yeah, these are not meant to be the most maneuverable boards, but they are more than maneuverable for pretty much anything you're going to need. In fact, if you are going down like a river, the X is a fantastic option for that, because if you got to get from one side to the next, you know, to avoid a tree or a, you know, a bank of sand or something, that 6 inches long with that extra wide stable platform lets you do that on a river really nicely. And so yeah, they're just both really good boards on the maneuverability side. The X is a little bit more maneuverable, but it is not something where I would ever tell someone don't get that board because it is not maneuverable enough. All right, now on to tracking. You notice I've switched to the XL because that is the board from a tracking standpoint that's a little bit better, right? It's a little longer, 11'6", a little bit narrower, 34 inches, so it's easier to get your paddle over and get it a little more vertical. But in general, you know, tracking is one of those things that everybody asks about, but then when you get out on the water, it's 90% plus your own paddling stroke that matter. It's really once you get it up into the race SUPs and the really, you know, if you're really trying to go long and far and fast at that level, that it matters. So, you know, both the X and the XL come with a tri-fin setup. It's their click fin system, which, you know, at first when they went away from the US fin box, I called up Steve, you know, the founder of iRocker, and I was like, dude, why'd you do that? And what he said is that 95+% of all their customers that bought Blackfins were asking for the click fin system because it's just easy, right? You snap it in, you go. And so, you know, from a tracking standpoint, that center fin is nice. It's long, it grabs water. Those side fins, you know, they might help with stability a little bit. Tracking wise, I do find that they help with them. Do they need to have the tri-fins? I think that's debatable. But again, I think you're talking only the top 1% of paddlers might even be able to tell a difference there. And the nice thing about that, the easy lock fin system that they have is they added a little tether leash, but you can lock it into place. So you're not going to worry, you know, if your kids go jump on this or throw it, you know, around the rocks, drag it through the mud, you're not going to lose your fins, which is kind of nice, kind of cool. And again, from a performance standpoint, the tracking's great. You know, for me, if I'm going on a longer paddle where tracking matters more, I'll take the XL, right? Not only that, but I'll usually load it up with gear. If it's, again, something shorter or something in a river where I need a little more maneuverability, I'll take the X. But if you're someone that likes the size of the X and still wants to go long adventures, the tracking is going to be totally fine. You're talking maybe an extra every once, you know, if you have to switch every 8 strokes on the side, you might have to switch on 7. It's not a big deal. So tracking, good job on the Blackfins. You're gonna have a ton of fun out there. Okay, on to the final, and perhaps the one that we get the most questions on, speed. How fast can they go? How do they do? And I will tell you, For larger boards, the Blackfins have consistently been some of the fastest large boards that we test, and that's no difference this year. In our sprint test, the Model X, we got it up to about 5.3 miles per hour. You know, that's where I get a good cruising speed and then hit it hard for a good 15-20 seconds and see what, you know, kind of what my average holding speed is on that. The XL got it just a few tenths of a second faster, right around 5.5, 5.6. And that really does, you know, it boosted a few tenths of a second faster than a lot of the bigger boards. And what I attribute that to is kind of the overall shape of the Blackfin. You notice that the nose, it tapers in nicely, a little bit reminiscent of a touring board, and same on the tail. You know, it tapers in, squares off, and so that as the water kind of goes through, it just releases nicely. And it's just a shape that I personally have liked a lot. Some of the bigger boards are more wide throughout, and I think that's great from a stability standpoint, but we already talked about that. You don't need the extra stability on a Blackfin. No matter how big you are, you're gonna be fine on the X or the XL. But I like the fact that it does taper a little bit, brings in some of those touring board elements to give you that extra speed, especially when you're looking over longer paddles. You know, if I'm going out on an adventure paddle, the XL, like I mentioned already, is one of the top boards that I take because of that extra length, the extra volume, the stability, but I'm not sacrificing in the speed. And it just has a good natural glide over the water. And I think that's one area where iRocker has done fantastic with both the Blackfin XL and the Model X. Okay, so before we dive into the performance of the boards, I wanted to go over what is included in the kit, because iRocker really changed it up with the Blackfins this year. In the past, when you've ordered it, you get the bag, you get the pump, you get the paddle, you get the leash, you get all of those things. And this year, what they found is a lot of people are buying these with second boards or third boards, and they get a lot of people asking, hey, do I have to have all of that? And so in order to try to keep the cost down for some people, they made it to where you start out with just the board. They kind of made this, you know, package builder. So you start with just the board. If you go, you hit buy now, add to cart and check out, just know you're gonna get the board, you're gonna get the fins. There's no leash, there's no paddle, there's no bag. So that's good if you're somebody that already has like a paddle, right? Or if you're somebody that has a bag. They are requiring you to buy a leash. And that was partially our doing, so I apologize if you don't like that, but we do think that everybody should have a leash for all of their boards and wear a leash at all times. So yes, you do have to add a leash. You get the board, you get the fins. If you want to add on, they have their old paddles, they have their new Blackfin paddle coming out, they have their old bag, they have a new bag. Let's see if I can stay straight here in the water. And so it is kind of cool, because if you already have those items, you don't need to order them on top of it. You know, if you already have a hand pump from an iRocker, don't buy the hand pump, buy the electric pump. If you already have an electric pump, maybe buy the hand pump so you have a backup. So you can kind of custom build whatever package you need for you. So as you can see in our testing, the Blackfins just performed really well. There's a reason why they have consistently been one of the top 1, 2, or 3 boards on our best overall inflatable SUP list for the past 4 or 5 years. And this year is no difference. It's very well built. It's backed by a company that really does care. You know, if any of you buy a board from Blackfin iRocker and have an issue with it, and they're not getting a hold of you, you can email me and I will text the CEO and the founder, and they will actually, they've gone the extra mile to take care of our readers so many times when it's not even their fault. And so I've just always appreciated that, you know, the personal connection and how much they care about, you know, our readers specifically. And so, yeah, it's very well constructed, did really well on all of our testing, and is just really a fantastic board all the way around. So who do we recommend this board for? Number one, and this is in no particular order, right? But if you're a beginner and you're worried about stability and you want to be able to actually stand up paddleboard, these are going to be some of your top picks. If you are a larger paddler, even if you're a larger paddler that wants to take a lot of gear, again, go with like the XL, you're going to love it. If you want something a little more sporty, you're even fine with the X as a larger paddler, even with additional gear. You know, for me, you know, you don't have to be a larger paddler to really love these boards. You know, I take the X and the XL a lot, especially when I've got my family out. You know, so they're a fantastic, great family board as well. I put two of my kids on, and I've, you know, paddled down rivers in Wyoming. I've done the rivers here in St. George, go out to the lake. Just one of my all-around favorite boards to take out and paddle with my family, to load up with gear on those long adventures. So even if you're an average size paddler or a smaller paddler, you'll still enjoy the sporty feel of these, but you just want to use them more as a high weight capacity board. You know, if you're really just looking to paddle solo and not put a bunch of gear and go a little faster, yeah, look at iRocker's Ultra series. Fantastic boards, super compact, super travelable. But again, if you're a larger paddler or want something, a larger platform, these are going to be top notch for you. And also, if you want a board that's just beautiful, you know, we're here, beautiful St. George, I mentioned. You look at these awesome colors in the background. We've swapped through the different boards showing you, you know, they've got 6 different color options on the X and the XL, so you can really choose which one you like. You know, tons of people love this fuchsia color. I personally love the sunburst because it kind of reminds me of, you know, southern Utah, and even the Utah Jazz, like southern Utah jersey. So I think the looks are really cool. That's personal. But these are boards that when I've unboxed them, everyone in our office came down and did a double take and said, wow, that's a really cool looking board. So just in general, really good boards, really solid all the way throughout, and why we've ranked it one of the top rated best inflatable subs again for 2023. Now, with all that being said, I hope this review is helpful. If we forgot anything, leave it in the comments below. Down there, you'll also see links to where you can buy the board. That's actually how you support our channel. You know, if we did a good job and this is the board that's for you and you want to buy it, please click the link down below. It'll take you to iRocker and we'll get credit for that. So thank you for supporting us. There's also a link to our in-depth review, which shows all the photos, all our test results, etc. There's that link. And you can also leave a comment on the site. Please subscribe to our channel and hit the little bell so you'll get notified when we come out with new stuff. You know, we have Bill flying out from New Zealand here pretty soon. We're going to do a series of, you know, beginning paddleboard tips and other paddleboarding tips that I think you're going to really like. And so, yeah, I hope it was helpful, and I hope to see you out on the water soon.